It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Black Eagle Arrows,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Scent Vapor Hunting Scents,
Killer Food Plot Seeds, Supplements, and Attractants,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Antler Action,
Family Tradition Tree Stands,
and Badass Slingshots.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal podcast, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight with Dan DeFaw and our producer, Kelly DeFaw. We have a producer tonight.
We do. Isn't that kind of nice?
It's going to be nice, yeah, so we can kind of concentrate, sit back, and she's going to feed questions to us and let us know what's going on behind the scenes. So, but you have a good weekend? Everything's going good for you?
You know, it's been a warm weekend.
Yeah.
Remember all that cool weather we had back in July and in August?
I went and got all the stuff to put the pool to bed for the winter, and all of a sudden it got warm.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, okay, so does this mean, okay, I'm going up the week of the 10th for bow hunting.
Uh-huh.
My guess is I'm probably going to need my shorts to be hunting in.
That's kind of what I'm wondering. You know, I said that today. I was out shooting the bow, and I think we're exactly 2 weeks away from the Michigan opener. You know, and what's it going to wind up being like? So, but you know, since we're talking about bow hunting, why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest for the evening?
Yeah, let's do that.
And here on the live stream, actually, you've got a great way to be able to do that. Am I right?
I do. Hold on,
All
everybody.
right.
Let me hit my magic button here.
Dan's got a trick up his sleeve.
All right.
And
Boom.
there is our guest.
There he is.
And he's talking to somebody. Hey, Chris, what's going on? Chris Schnurr.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, doing good, man.
Good. How about yourself?
Keeping busy. Crazy day today at work, so finally get to get home, get a little rest and relaxation. So
You know, it was a little crazy day, and I came out and visited today out there at Cabela's in Chesterfield, Michigan, and I walked in, and yeah, you were busy, and then you got busier.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it to this day, it never amazes me. We are less than it's 2 weeks from today is the opener for Michigan bow season, and you got people coming in asking for new strings.
Yeah, this is that crazy time where people are now remembering that opening day is just a couple days away or a couple weeks away.
Right.
So they're looking for those last minute, oh crap, I got to get my stuff out of the box and actually practice and make sure it's working. And,
right.
But yeah, I mean, we've been super busy trying to get our turnaround time, getting stuff in and out really fast, which has been good. We've had good success with it, so customers have been happy. We're making sure everybody's completely ready before they leave.
And you know what? I'm going to make a shameless plug for Cabela's, but I've noticed a lot of people, when you tell them after you worked on their bow or whatever, and you said no charge, they're like, "Really?" And you're like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, and they're like, "Oh, thanks, man." So.
But yeah, no, we've gotten sorry, Dan's texting me. No, we had
Well, you know what?
no,
Okay.
our services. Sorry to kind of go weird there. No, but the services at Cabela, yeah, we do offer a lot of our services are for free. Cutting arrows, installing strings, a lot of our tuning services. I mean, we do the best we can. I mean, I'm the lead tech at the new Chesterfield store, but we got a lot of our outfitters there are slowly but surely getting trained to do more and more and more. So there's more people that are constantly going to be available to help everybody.
That
which
is
is
a good thing.
the best success.
Absolutely, because their eyes light up when they tell them no charge.
Well, what's the one thing you're seeing come in, probably the most common thing that you're seeing people need help with?
The most common thing I'm probably seeing right now, we've been seeing a bunch of string orders. That happens a lot, mainly because people pull them out and they remember how bad condition their string was, or if they didn't put it away properly, or something like that. That we get a lot of that in. We've had the crossbows that kind of come out and broken string or something to that nature. We got those all taken care of. So strings have been a huge one. We've seen a lot of that. Another thing we've been getting a lot more of is arrow rests. So people either making a big change from the whisker biscuit to a drop away, or if they've had bad experiences with a drop away, they're going back to a whisker biscuit. I mean, you're going to see everybody has a preference when it comes down to that stuff. So we've just been seeing a lot of transitions in that for definite.
All right. So reason I got Chris on is he helped me today with Kelly's bow and my bow. And I'm shooting the Evolve 31. And Kelly is shooting her
Always
mark.
try to make it bigger, huh?
Do I need to go there or not? Do you want me to let that one slide?
Just sit there.
Okay, I'll let it slide.
Just let it linger for a second.
Right. But actually, I brought Kelly and my oldest daughter, and we were having some issues, and I said, you know what? Let's just take it to Chris. Let's just go from A to Z again, and have him check it out. And basically, we're finding out that she was basically all off.
Yeah, we had a couple things we tweaked on that. We started with the arrow. I mean, the arrow that she was shooting was a good arrow. She was shooting a 500 spine. I believe it was the Outlaw, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you had some 340s as well. So we played a little bit with that. We actually found out that with her draw length, the way she was shooting, and that particular bow, we got it close with the 500s, which, according to the chart and the poundage she would be shooting, that's kind of would put you in that slightly weak ideal area, but would typically be a good arrow size for her to shoot. But just for kicks and giggles, we're like, you know what, let's throw a 340 on it. Let's see what happens. Surprisingly, we threw the 340 on it, and that bow really reacted super well. I mean, it worked really well. The bow seemed to like it a lot better. I think we shot a couple different 340s through it, and we were still getting a bullet hole. So,
yeah, we were, and that proof in the pudding. That. So, do you basically tune the bow to the arrow, or the arrow to the bow?
Well, it really depends. Typically, for me, I've always found that a stiffer arrow is always going to tune a little better out of every bow. And when I say stiffness, a lot of just so everybody's I guess aware of what I'm talking about and what rates the stiffness on an arrow. So when you look at boxes of arrows, and almost every single brand, there's a couple brands that have their own systems, but for a vast majority of them, they're starting to kind of unify in the way they do it. But you'll see on every box, there's like a 300, 340, 400, 500, 600, 900 if you're getting into the really soft arrows. And what that is that's the spine measurement of the arrow. So what they do is they take that arrow at, I believe, don't quote me on this, maybe not, but I believe it's a 29-inch shaft, and they put approximately 2 pounds. It's like 1.97, so on and so forth. But they put 2 pounds in the center of that arrow, and they measure the amount of flex that arrow actually has. And what that is called is the arrow's deflection. So that's how they judge how stiff and how weak the arrow actually is. So, I mean, through all the bows that I've shot through the years, and especially with the PSEs, I've found that they react better to a stiffer arrow shaft. It's a little easier to tune in. A weak arrow can be really tricky, and it can cause a lot of nightmares that you could probably just avoid by running a little bit on the stiff side. So basically, the charts that you read and see online, they're all basically kind of the same, but can vary difference across the manufacturers? Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be a lot of those are written by the engineers for the companies and a lot of the designers as well of the arrows and the products. So you're looking a lot at what their testing showed to them. I don't know how often the companies intertwine their testing and so on, but as far as the spine charts, yeah, they're all very close. Carbon Express is one that has a little different arrow chart. They use a little different rating system with like the 150, 250, and 350 spines. Those tend to be just kind of flip-flopped. The 350 is a 350 spine, but the 250 is a 400 spine, and the 150 is a 500. So,
oh, okay.
But for the most part, Easton, Beeman, Gold Tip, all those companies, they're all using the same spine charts that you'd conventionally see out there.
Okay, I got it.
You know, if you've got a certain rated arrow, for stiffness, whatever it may be, and you start taking length off it, if you're really shortening it, that's going to cause that arrow to become stiffer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna cause it to get stiff. I mean, like I said, that 29-inch arrow that they're talking about for setting up spine or for measuring the spine, that's that deflection at 29 inches. You go under that, it's going to act significantly stiffer. If you go longer than that, it's going to act significantly weaker. Okay. So it's all it all comes down to arrow length, and that's why those tune charts or those arrow charts on the back are so important.
Okay, so let's say you got a real short draw length, and you know you're going to be cutting something off, and you're right on the edge of an arrow size versus a stiffer or a weaker arrow. Which way do you go if you know you're going to be cutting some off? Quite a bit off.
You go stiffer.
Go stiffer. Okay.
Yeah, you definitely go stiffer. The cool thing about arrows is, and a lot of people know this, some people don't, but you have that tip weight to really play with.
Okay.
So conventionally, a lot of guys, easy. I'm going to go grab 100 grain broadheads, 100 grain field points. That's just what everybody kind of gravitates to because the arrow charts on the back are designed with 100 grains in mind. That's how they're all developed and how they're all written.
Okay.
So when you're on that line of should I go with a 400 or should I go with a 340, you'd go with the stiffer arrow, which would be the 340, and you would add maybe 125 grains or maybe get a pack of 100s and a pack of 125s. That way you can play and kind of see which ones group better for you.
Okay.
All right, so like we did with Kelly's, we took her 340s, we cut them down to her length, and then I think we're using a 100 grain broadhead on the front of that. So
she confirmed.
Yeah, that's what we were using with her. It's now hers was, I'll be honest, hers was kind of an anomaly. That doesn't really happen too often. I mean, granted, I'm primarily a spot shooter, so when I go inside and shoot indoors, I'm shooting a 150 or 200 spine arrow. So I'm shooting a really, really stiff arrow. So, but we're also putting like 225 to 300 grains in the front of our arrows to really slow them down and get them to flex more. So it's a little different animal.
Right, exactly. That whole indoor thing is definitely a different animal.
So, from what Dan was telling me when you guys were playing around with that today, it sounds to me like when you pattern a shotgun for turkey season or for waterfowl, whatever, you could have two shotguns side by side, same exact models, and one might like a different size shot than the other. And it sounds to me like what you're saying was her bow liked a different stiffness of arrow. So it's kind of the same thing in relationship. Or no? Yeah,
it's definitely the same. It's just like having 3 different kinds of ammo, for example. Okay. One gun might love Remington ammo, another one might love Winchester ammo. I mean, it's just
gotcha.
It all depends on what that bow really likes.
Okay. What causes that? Just the natural geometry of the bow and the shooter in that setup?
Yeah, a little bit of it could be the shooter. I mean, everybody's unique. Most bows every bow that we get at Cabela's pretty much is set at 70 pounds and 29 inches of draw length. That's how pretty much every bow comes directly out of the box.
Right.
So that bow is tested and put within spec at that draw length and at that poundage. So we have to take that into consideration when we're dropping a bow down to 21 inches, 25 inches, 27 inches. We have to kind of make sure that bow's set up for that individual shooter.
Okay.
Everybody kind of has a different release point or a different anchor point. Different torque that they'll put in their grips as they shoot. So bows react differently for every shooter.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're bumping up on our first break here. Why don't we step outside? We'll take our first break. We come back. I want to talk to you about what you did with Danny's bow and the way you set it up. So
cool.
We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam system, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
Welcome back, everybody. Second segment of the show, talking about bow tuning.
Yes, we are.
Seeing how everything is coming upon us here in 2 weeks to get out in the woods and get in tree stands.
And it's something really that, to tell you the truth, I've never really took it to this extreme.
Yeah, you did something different today.
You're not kidding.
Well, actually, Chris did something to your bow that was different today.
Yeah, almost made me cry, but that was another issue. But anyways, okay, so So while I had Kelly down there, I was like, okay, I'm going to bring my bow, and we're going to actually shoot this through paper, because it's one thing I've never done. I've just...
Paper tuning.
Okay. So I'm like, okay. I'm using stock everything. Mm-hmm. So no different strings, no anything. So it's right out of the factory. Throw a rest on it, throw a D-loop on it, and away I go. Mm-hmm. But I took it out, shot it for Chris, and Chris goes, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
you gotta tear left, tear right.
Did he give you the same look that Dan Yassa give you when you start to pick up a bow?
No.
Why are you laughing, Chris? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. No, I didn't say anything.
No. But anyways, he noticed. So he looked at my bow, and then he proceeded to tell me we're gonna have a Dan Yassa. We're gonna go all Dan Yassa on this bow.
Okay.
And then I went, what? And you know when you mention those two words, it's not something's gonna. Then that look came into my mind of Dan looking at me, and I'm like, oh boy. Mm-hmm. So he proceeds to throw it in the press and pull off one of my cams.
Okay.
Pull off. Lay it on the table.
So was that the moment you cried?
That was just about it. But anyways, he had good reason to do it, and now he can explain what he did to my bow. So
he had a tear right, you said?
Yeah. So he had what did we have? About 1.5 inch knock right tear.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was straight right. We didn't have any up or down deviation at all. It's just a straight right tear. So the Evolve is a kind of a unique bow. Being brand new for PSE, it's kind of it's a new system, and that Evolve Cam is kind of really amazing in the way it works. So what it does is, instead of like conventionally maybe a dual cam bow or something to that nature, is going to have a yoke system, which we're pretty used to seeing the big Y off the top that aligned on either side of the limb. So what we would typically do is knock right tear. You could move your rest to the right, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but paper tuning is kind of backwards. It's kind of, if you look at your tear, you're going to do the exact opposite of what common sense would say. So what we're looking at is basically the arrow's coming in at the target, but it's coming with the back end of the arrow out. Okay. So what we have to fix is actually bringing the tip of the arrow back in. So what you would think is, if you're looking at it, you're thinking, okay, my arrow's going this way. I need to just move the tip in, and that'll fix it. Well, that's not actually the case. What we wanted to do is we wanted to do the exact opposite. But with the Evolve, it's such a perfect system that you kind of have to check everything, make sure everything's in perfect working order. So what we checked is we went through my typical kind of run through. Okay, what are the cams doing? Where's the rest at? So we looked at center shot. Center shot was right down the middle, dialed right in. So we then went and we looked at the cams. Bottom cam was absolutely perfect. Top cam had probably so little cam lean that the average guy is really not going to notice that. For the most part, it's not something that people really watch too often, but it's such a small, minute thing that we could have worked it out in your rest, but I'm a perfectionist, and that's where the Dan moment came in, I guess. So I wanted to make sure that we fixed that. So PSE has 122 thousandths of shims in their cams.
Okay. So
between both sides of the cams, there's a bigger spacer, and then there's 3.020 spacers, so 20,000 spacers. And what I was able to do is, the way your bow came set up from the factory there was on the string side, or the side opposite of the cable guard, there was one of the 20,000 spacers, and then there was the larger spacer, and then there was two of the 20,000 spacers on the cable guard side as well. So we pulled the cam out, took a look at the spacer situation, what we had going on, and we moved two of the 20,000. So we made a 40,000 change in the position of the cam on the axle. And Danny, you can even say to this, when we put the bow back together and we measured cam lean, it was perfect. I mean, we had perfect alignment with the string and from an arrow. If you lay your arrow against the side of your cam, you can kind of see what your bow's doing and what your cam's doing. But it was perfect at that point.
You showed me how to do that with an arrow, to put it on the cam, to make sure it goes to the D-loop but doesn't cross the D-loop.
Yeah, we're kind of looking for ideal point would be for the arrow just to run straight along the side of the string and maybe touch the string at the D loop. Or the way the Evolve is, it's right in the middle. So you're kind of looking at that perfect point. Is it touching right where it should?
Right, exactly. And the first time you showed it to me, it was crossing across the D loop onto the other side.
Yeah, so we had a little bit. I mean, I know that sounds like a ton, but with the way that bow is, and with the way most bows are, a degree or a half a degree or even 2 degrees of cam lean can really amplify once you put that string down there. I mean, I'm sure you probably never even really noticed that there was any cam lean on your bow at all.
I did not even notice it at all. I'll tell you that right now, and that's one thing you pointed out to me to check. And now, new bows that I get, I'm watching how you're showing me, and Dan, he shows me as well these new little nuances of how to check things. But that's a simple one you can actually do, is just take the arrow that you have in your hand, lay it across the cam, and see how it reacts to looking at your string, right? So that's one of the things. These are some of the things that people can do at home, and then can just, take it and...
Show me, Dan. I just went and got my bow.
So he just went and got his bow.
For those of you on the podcast, you're going to have to watch the live stream to be able to see what we're talking about.
So you hold the bow like that.
Okay.
I'm going to do exactly what he did with me, because he can't see this, but he took the arrow, went like this. And you see that? See how it's crossing over?
Yeah.
Oh my. That's all I got to say, Chris. His is doing
here.
His top cam.
Turn it like this so people can see it at home.
His top cam is doing exactly the same thing mine did. Right? That's top cam. Yep.
And just to clarify on that real quick, I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I'm a big as hardcore PSE guy as you guys are right now. So I mean, when we're talking cam lean, I mean, you probably pointed out that if it had the same amount of cam lean, it probably looks like a ton.
Yeah.
And remember, we'll go back to what I said before. When they're checking bows at the factory, they're checking these at 29, 70 pounds or max poundage.
Right.
So limbs are a real tricky thing, and companies will spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of engineering on their limbs. And PSE does a fantastic job of them. I don't know how many of your viewers, or even we've talked about it before, but PSE limbs have a tremendous amount of preload on them.
Oh, right.
So your 31-inch Evolve is probably closer to 40, 45 inches when it's unstrung, because those limbs have so much curve and so much preload to them.
Right.
And what that does, it really helps the efficiency of the bow. Now, sometimes when bows get put together, there's grease in the pockets, which makes them lubricate to quiet them down. Mm-hmm. And bows are shipped, and they're shipped in airplanes, they're shipped in trucks, they're shipped in different things. So temperatures can sometimes fluctuate those things a little bit. So a bow that maybe left the factory when it was freshly machined and freshly powder coated or freshly painted or whatever, it's going to settle, and we're talking maybe a half a degree of settling. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with the bow. That's not to mean that the manufacturer's doing a sloppy job. It's just bows are designed to be tweaked and fine-tuned.
Exactly.
I mean, let's be real for a second here. If we were expecting bows to be absolutely perfect, fine-tuned machines, we wouldn't be paying $1,000 for a high-end bow. We'd probably be paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a high-end bow. So it's the same kind of thought process.
You're talking like the difference between equate it to cars. A guy buys a Camaro, a brand new Camaro, and it's a factory motor. It's within spec, but if he wants it blueprinted, the motor blueprinted, then it's going to cost a lot of money to bring that right to the exact measurements. That's kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, every bow company has tolerances. PSE has very, very tight tolerances, as a lot of the really high-end manufacturers out there do. Mm-hmm. So Ashley's shooting the Phenom SD, which is it's a short draw women's target bow, or youth target bow, and I was shooting the Expression 3D this year. So I mean, we're talking as of last year, these are the really high-end target bows that they had for last year. Mm-hmm. So, and being that every shooter isn't the same, I mean, one bow is going to shoot absolutely perfect for me with 0 cam lean, and I might have to put it in someone else's hands, and when they go to shoot it, they're going to get something different. So that's why a company like PSE puts everything within their specs, their tolerances, and things of that nature, and then they turn around and give you the options. Like some manufacturers might not give us the option to move the spacers like we moved on Danny's bow.
Okay.
But we were able to do that simply because PSE allows us to say, you know what, this might not be perfect for everybody, so we're going to give you a couple spacers to help finagle and find out what's going to tune best for your arrow, for your shooting style, for torque you induce into the bow, and different things like that.
Gotcha.
Right, exactly. And Chris being the technician that he is, and knowing that, I would never tell you that there was 3 spacers there.
I wouldn't have known that. Yeah, I had no clue.
And that's at the top and the bottom on each cam, right?
Yeah, both cams have a total of 122,000 spacers. There's 4 spacers total on the bow.
Okay, so definitely it looks like Mike needs to come pay you a visit. There's no doubt about it.
I'm going to cry too now. He's going to rip my bow apart.
Yes, he is. Now you can go through that.
Now, let me ask you this. This must be maybe a dumb question, but okay, let's say I shoot, and am I going to, with that cam lean, am I going to see a tear one way or the other? Most likely, or is it going to be the way I have my bow set up? It may be okay.
Let's say, I'm going to say most likely, you're going to see some kind of tear.
Mm-hmm.
That would be if everything's under perfect situations, you have 0 torque induced into your grip,
mm-hmm.
and you released absolutely perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
we know that's not happening.
we know, I mean, I've been shooting for a while now. I mean, I still torque the heck out of my bow. Everybody torques their bow to some extent. It's my hand is not the same as the guy who designed the bow himself,
right,
and probably fit that release or that grip to his hand perfectly. So, with that being said, everybody's going to have some type of torque induced into their grip.
Okay.
So it all depends, really. But I would assume that there's going to be, if your cam lean was similar to Danny's, and you're probably talking about the same slight right tear if center shot's in perfect order.
To tell you the truth, it looked exactly like the first arrow you showed me. It looked exactly like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, but like I said, how long did that take us to fix that? That would probably took us.
Uh-oh.
Wow, that's when you dropped the phone.
Drop my phone. You see me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why we don't trust.
This is the guy that you let work on your bow?
You're right, exactly.
He was out of the room when I dropped his bow.
Oh, that's good stuff.
But this is what live Facebook does for you.
That's right.
And people on the podcast can relive this moment.
Right.
And I'm sure Dan's going to get this.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dan's probably watching.
Dan is watching, I think, and he's got a question for Chris.
What was Dan's question?
How do you get good arrow flight?
Oh, how do you get good arrow flight? Now, I want you to think about that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want you to answer that for everybody, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Can you hang on to your phone that long?
Well, I got my stand out of my car.
Okay.
My window stand.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm going to be jittery as heck. I had some Mountain Ops Yeti while I was at work today, and my hands are all like,
okay,
yeah, let's go ahead and do this. This is great.
All right. Well, okay. We're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this, folks.
So what do you do when you've completely redefined the way bows are engineered? When you've reached the pinnacle and the band starts playing your victory song, you start a revolution out of thin air. Introducing the all-new PSE Carbon Air, engineered with true carbon technology to be the lightest high-performance bow in the world. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
Welcome back to the third segment of the show, everybody. Still chatting with Chris Schnurr from Cabela's, the lead bow. What do we call you? Bow tech? Bow mechanic? Bow... What do we call you?
The bow guru.
The bow guy?
Yeah. What was it last time when we did the podcast last time? I think it was, what was it? the wrench, right? Isn't that
The
what you
wrench,
call me
yeah.
last time?
You are the wrench.
The master wrench.
You are the master wrench bow guy at Cabela's in Chesterfield.
So we had a question come in. We give you a little minute here to think about this. Talking about arrow flight, how to get perfect arrow flight.
So Dan's trying to stump me on this one. I know what he's trying to do here. So the definition for me, and this might be different for everybody, but for me, the definition of perfect arrow flight is I'm looking for both nodes of the arrow to fly in unison from the second they release out of my bow to the second they impact the target. As long as they can do that, I'm happy. So, as weird as that sounds, I don't know if I went over everyone's head there. But so, you got the nodes, you got 3 sections of the arrow. You have the back, like let's call it the back 1.5 inches, and the front 1.5 inches, maybe
Okay.
2 inches or so. And what I'm looking for is everybody's familiar with the term archer's paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what archer's paradox is the arrow actually flexing. Recurve archers, it's very important for them to have it because that's how they get fletching clearance as the arrow goes by the bow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what archer's paradox does is it uses 2 different sections. The front and rear nodes flex together. As long as they stay in perfect alignment, then we're going to get that perfect bullet hole that we're looking for. We're also going to maintain it all the way to the target, which is what we're looking for as well. That's what's going to get consistent grouping. So for arrow flight, that's really what I'm primarily looking for, is making sure those 2 units are working exactly the same, flying out of my bow exactly the same for every arrow, and that they're grouping at the furthest comfortable distance that I'm able to shoot at.
Okay, and you're checking that with doing paper tuning at different distances?
Yeah, so paper tuning, you try to do it at you start out at about 5 yards. So at 5 yards, I want to know exactly what my bow is doing. That's where I'm going to start my tuning at. Because if I get a bullet hole at 5 yards, great. We're in great working order. Now let's try it at 10 yards. Now let's try it at 15 yards. Now let's try it at 20, 25, 30. The reason you're doing that is because the further out you get, the more the pieces of your arrow start working for you. The more the tip weight becomes important. The more the fletching combination becomes important. So as you add things in, they kind of fluctuate the way the arrow flies. So a stiffer a weaker arrow might fishtail a little bit as you get away from it if you have too much tip weight or not enough tip weight. It all depends on how the bow's tuned.
Okay, I was seeing that today with mine at about 40 yards. I was really paying attention to arrow flight, and as I watched the arrow flight, I was getting a left kick out of it. You know, and it wasn't impacting the target square either. All my arrows are kind of canted left.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it could be that might be where remember how we talked about might have the same paper tuning effect, whereas if it's kicking to the left, it might be going out, and when it finally kind of settles and the flexing of the arrow kind of stops,
right,
it might be veering left. The rear node might be to the left of the arrow, tracking towards the target.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay, so I have a question then. Let's say you want to add, on a typical arrow, it comes with an insert or an outsert, arrow, nock. So if I wanted to add weight in the front, would I do that with the point? Or is there weight you can add to the front? Or
depends on the arrow. Some arrow systems do allow you to add maybe a weight system added to the back of the insert. But for the most part, the easiest way your average bow hunter or average consumer is going to do it is by fluctuating their tip weight. Just their screw-in points. So you've got, like at Cabela's, I know we sell 75s, 85s, 90s, 100s, and 125s. Those are your most common that you're going to see. And playing with different tip weights can drastically change maybe your grouping size. A lot of guys, like I said, just go with 100s right out of the box because that's what the tune chart says. But maybe experimenting with 125s can drastically change the way everything groups at further distances or even closer distances. It all depends.
interesting.
Okay, let's throw this at you then. Okay, let's talk about the back end on the nock side. We want to put a lighted nock on. It's going to add some weight. Do you need to counterbalance that with the front to keep those two parts flying together?
I mean, honestly, it's a lot to change for just adding a lit nock. I mean, lit nocks are super convenient. Everyone kind of likes them. It tends to be one of the biggest trends you're going to see in bow hunting right now is adding the lit nock to the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as fluctuating tip weight or FOC, if you have an FOC that's in the positive realm, somewhere between that 8 to 12 range, 8 to 12% range, there's really no need to, if you drop to like, say, if you're at 12 and you drop to 10.5, 11%, there's really no reason to start adding tip weight to get back to 12.
Okay.
You'll see guys starting to try to get to that 16, 18, 20, 22% FOC. And as most target shooters will tell you, too much FOC at further distances is really going to affect the way the arrow flies in a negative way. And it might not tune the ideal way you want it to.
Okay. All right. So looking at everything we're talking about, for the average guy who's going to go out, sit in a tree stand and shoot, a deer between, let's say, 10 yards and 40 yards. Are we getting in the weeds too much? I mean, does all this? I mean, is it really important that they pay attention to these particular things on their bows?
I mean, when we're talking 10 to 40, well, let's break that into two categories.
Okay.
There's kind of two parts to that 10 to 40 discussion. If you're talking that 10 to 20 yard shot, you're not really discussing a whole bunch about what the arrow's doing, what the poundage is doing so much, or how the flight is. Because somewhere between 10 and 20 yards, the arrow's going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to hit where it needs to hit.
Okay.
When you start getting to that like 20 to 40 realm, that's when you're starting to get into kind of that meat and potatoes of where that arrow is going to be doing its most work.
Okay.
So when a lot of people will, a lot of arrow testing and things like that is done at further distances or middle range distances. So we're talking somewhere between 40 to 90 yards. Now, 90 might not be in Michigan an ethical kill shot. But, I mean, as far as out west, that might be something that those guys are practicing and getting ready for because that might be their shot on an elk.
Exactly.
We might not take it on a whitetail, but on an elk that's a much larger target, much larger kill zone, there's more to work with.
Right.
So that might be an acceptable shot for them. So those guys are going to maybe spend a little bit more time on their arrow to make sure everything is in absolute perfect tune, perfect shape. Their FOC is dialed in right where they need it to be to group well at further distances and so on. But I think as far as your standard Michigan bow hunter, tree stand guy, ground blind guy with a 20 to 35, 40 yard shot, the really heavy FOC arrows, I think that's a little bit on the overkill side. But then again, there's the flip side of going ultra, ultra light. We are seeing a big trend. At Cabela's, we sell a ton of bows that are 70 pounds. And a lot of people want that IBO speed. I mean, when you buy a bow, it says 350 feet per second. You expect that bow to shoot 350 feet per second. But what most people don't realize is that broadheads don't shoot well at 350 feet per second. They shoot well at 290 feet per second or to 270 feet per second. They're going to group better. They're going to fly better because everything on the arrow is allowed to do what it's supposed to do. So shooting a bow at 70 pounds with a 30-inch draw length with a 350 grain arrow might give you 350 feet per second, but is that really what's best? And then also you got to take into consideration it's freezing cold outside. I mean, you guys hunt in Michigan, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do. but
the second October 1st hits, I'm going to have 1.5 feet of snow out by my blind, and
right,
that's how it's going to be. I know it, but for me personally, I shoot a 60-pound bow. Can I pull 70 pounds? Absolutely. I have to do it probably 40 times every day. My shoulder doesn't appreciate it very much, but being my job, I have to pull back heavy bows. But shooting with a 60-pound bow, even, I'm not pulling 60 pounds. I'm still reducing I'm taking a couple turns out of the limb bolts because shooting max poundage really isn't 100% necessary anymore. I mean, you're getting a 350 feet per second bow that you can shoot at 290, 280. That's going to be comfortable. It's going to feel better. It's going to draw smoother. And you're going to be able to do it when it's 10 degrees outside. You've been sitting still, completely unwarmed up, not moving for 3 hours.
Right on.
Right.
Yep. Makes a huge, huge difference.
I think what you said, Mike, is, are we getting into the weeds? In a little bit, yes, but I think it's also important to point out to maximize the ability of the bow is to, when you first set one up, is maybe do the A to Z, go over it, check all the different things that Chris has pointed out,
right.
Look at it, have a guy like Chris being able to look at it and do a simple test with an arrow and say, hey, we can make an adjustment, make you a little bit that much better. That way, you're taking the investment that you are, because we are talking $1,000 bows here.
Exactly.
That you can go in and maximize its potential for you.
Well, and I think we owe it to the animal that we're trying to take too. If we're going to kill an animal, do you want to be, trying to take that marginal shot? If you practice and your bow's tuned, it doesn't become a marginal shot. It becomes an ethical kill shot, whatever that distance is for you. So, and that's where I'm trying to get, is to where I can shoot successfully at 40, 50, maybe even 60 yards. And that's what I'm practicing at right now. And, now that I know what Danny told me about what you did to his bow and what I seen today out of the flights of my arrows, it's got me thinking, okay, I need to take that next step and tune.
Exactly.
Start tuning more.
It's progression of learning what equipment we're using.
Right. Exactly. So.
Well, and one thing for me that I've always found important is a lot of guys don't like to touch their sight. That's one question I get when we do a lot of some tech work for guys. Is they're like, what am I going to have to do to my sight? Am I going to have to change my pins? Am I going to have to move my sight at all? Because they kind of get nervous about that. For me personally, I like moving my pins around. That means something's changed, or I've gotten better, or my setup shooting better, to where I've found a change that's necessary for me to make. So if I'm not moving my sight, if my 40 pin all of a sudden becomes 2 feet off because I moved my rest, I want to know that, okay, I need to have changed something. I need to make sure that sighting in is a priority and getting behind that bow as much as possible.
Right, and that's what I ran into today. I had my bow tweaked. I had my rest, we think, had moved. We were getting some noise out of it. And actually, you looked at it. Danny brought it down to you, and you looked at it. I had our pro shop make the adjustment on it. Come home to shoot, all of a sudden, I'm shooting high. So first thing I do, I start moving the whole sight housing, bringing everything together and bringing it up and getting it back in tune. That doesn't bother me. Like you said, moving a sight to me is no big deal.
Not at all.
It's part of the tuning process, I think.
Well, and it gives you time to really get to know your equipment. I mean, for someone like me and Ashley and Dan Yass, we're very rarely without shooting our bows every day of the year. If there's dust on my bow, find out what hole my wife buried me in, because she probably killed me or something. I don't know. But she'll probably kill me after the podcast for saying that. She hates it when
No, because I was going to ask her, I know she's off screen, but I was going to ask her if she got her bow all set, because we shot this past Wednesday night. Chris came out with me, and she couldn't shoot because she was setting up her bow for indoors.
Okay.
I said put a sweater on it and bring it outdoors, but I guess she was, doing what she needed to do. But is she got it all? Is she practicing with her indoor setup now?
She is. So she's actually in a little different phase right now. So yes, the bow is set up for indoors. She's all ready and geeked for that. I mean, granted, we still have hunting season to deal with, so let's not jump the gun here too quickly. I still want to harvest some wildlife.
Harvest.
So, harvest, yes, harvest.
We harvest crops. We harvest corn. We harvest beans.
We harvest corn. So yeah,
we kill animals.
I still want to hunt, so let's not get too far ahead of it. So what we're doing right now is we actually made a little bit of a release change. So Ashley is a very small, petite girl. So she's only 5'1" on a good day, probably wearing 2-inch heels.
She's taller than Danny.
I didn't say it. You said it. So she deals with her draw length issues. So she's only like a 23 and a half to maybe 23 3/4 draw length is kind of where she sits, which to put her into a performance target bow really designed for pure performance is difficult. And even to get her in a hunting bow can be hard at times. Mm-hmm. So right now she's playing with a new release that she got, which is actually, it's a Stan Perfex. So what it actually does, it's got a really short head. So she's been training with that. But the really cool thing is she can actually draw her bow back with that release and fire it and not worry about having an arrow in the bow at all.
It's got the practice. It's got the practice safety stop on it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So the Stan has a trainer lock. So basically, what she can do is she can put a lock in her release that allows it to completely. She can hear an audible, loud click when she shoots it, and then let her bow down. So
Okay.
she gets kind of double practice every single time. So it's convenient for her to, in our basement, without having to go up to the range, and on rainy days and so on and so forth, she can actually practice with that release and get used to it. So
Awesome.
keeps us busy.
And you got to check out these Stan releases. I checked one.
Which we have at Cabela's. So,
You do?
Yes,
Yeah.
They
I
sell
was
these at
talking to Danny
Cabela's.
about that today. Our we have 2 Instinct releases actually.
It's on
I
an
believe
Instinct
what was
line.
it, the Instinct Dynasty, I believe, is the one that we have. It's Cabela's branded, but it's actually made by Stan, and it's very similar to the new Perfex. It doesn't
Okay.
have all the features like the adjustable finger angles, but it does have it.
Sounds like I got to go
Pretty
check something
wild.
else out. Yeah. Another thing I got to check out at Cabela's. Thanks.
right?
Yeah, that's something that, let's talk about releases real quickly here before we let you go.
Yep.
Actually, I tell you what. Let's take our last break. We come back. I'll ask this question to you about releases, and then we'll wrap up the show. Okay.
Good.
All right. We'll be right back after this.
I shoot PSE because I like one pin to 40 yards.
I shoot PSE for the perfect combination of feel and performance.
I shoot PSE because you can shoot lighter poundage and increase arrow speed.
I shoot PSE for the fastest bows on the planet. I shoot PSE because my livelihood depends on my bow.
I shoot PSE because better engineering makes a better bow.
I shoot PSE.
I shoot PSE.
I shoot PSE. I shoot PSE.
Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Killer Food Plots have been helping property owners for over 20 years create premier whitetail habitat. Whether replenishing your soil with their all-natural Organics Fusion pellets or planting a premier KFP food plot seed blend to help your deer rebuild their bodies through spring and summer while supplying the much-needed high energy during and after the rut, you can trust that Killer Food Plots family and their products will help your deer achieve their full potential.
Welcome back. Last segment of the show. Sitting here still talking with Chris Schnurr. We're talking archery. We're talking hunting, man. We're getting things ready for season. We're 2 weeks out.
We are 2 weeks from today. The youth season and Liberty Hunt was the past, 2 days now.
Right. A lot of deer I'm seeing on Facebook. A lot of deer. Now, speaking of getting ready for season, I've contemplated whether to change releases. We're 2 weeks out. I'm going to probably be up the second weekend in October, so that's 3 weeks away. Should I be sticking with what I've got, or is that enough time to try a new release out? Or is that just going to mess things up for me?
So, I mean, it really all depends on what your current confidence level is with the release you have right now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's really the best question.
I'll take it from
as
my point of view is I tried.
Mm-hmm.
I tried early.
Yep.
Dan slapped me upside the head.
I was there that day.
Right. And then I've now gotten back to a confidence level where I'm done adjusting anything for the year.
Okay.
So
that's kind of my thought.
That's what I'm going to stay with till next year. And then, because you're going to mess with this Stan release that he's going to show. We can see the one at Cabela's when we're down there.
Okay.
But he did a live stream of this one that he's showing.
Last week, I believe,
right?
Wasn't it? Yep.
So, but tell us about this type of release.
So this type of release is this is actually Ashley's release. She went and grabbed it.
For those of you on the podcast, you're going to have to watch the live stream here to see what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I'll try to describe it in a little bit of detail so people can actually see it, and you can also look it up. So this is one of the new releases from Stan Islowski. So Stan, or otherwise known as just Stan releases. So this is the Perfex, and it's actually the small model. So if it looks gigantic, or actually my hand looks gigantic in it, it's just because the release is really small. So, but the cool thing about these is this is actually where a lot of guys are going to start switching over to. Traditionally, you're seeing a lot of index finger shooters or releases that are just activated with your index finger pulling against a trigger and allowing the release to go off, or allowing the string to go off. There's nothing wrong with that, and if shot properly, can be extremely accurate. There's a ton of top-level professional archers that compete every day with index finger releases, and they've done a fantastic job with it. And in fact, some companies are actually really setting the bar and moving forward in innovating in that market as well. But for right now, the two most predominant releases that you're seeing in tournament shooters are handheld thumb button activated or back tension style. So I won't spend too much time into back tension because I definitely wouldn't recommend anybody running out right now and trying a back tension release right before season, because it can kind of screw with your confidence a little bit if you don't have a ton of time to get acclimated to it. But a thumb button release is a really safe, comfortable release for people to shoot, and it allows you to have more of a consistent anchor point against your face. So one of the things that we do at our Cabelas is before every archer or before every new shooter leaves, or if they're brand new to it, we make sure that they're completed with the whole package. So when you come in to buy a bow, you're not just buying a bow. Let's be honest. You're going to be buying arrows. You're going to be buying a release. You're going to be buying probably a backpack to carry everything in. There's a lot of other items that you're going to be purchasing. And so a release becomes a very important part of how you touch your bow when you're shooting it. And the guys that try the handhelds absolutely love them. And one of the reasons being is that it's right here in your hand, drawn back, you can grab your face. A lot of guys with index fingers will have issues because they feel like they're way back here, or the posts don't have enough adjustment, so they can't find an anchor position that's consistent and comfortable. Most commonly, you'll see on a handheld release this V right here in your fingers that you can see that post right there in. My jawline is where that V goes directly against here, so I can find nice, consistent feel every single time. And what that allows me to do is draw back and apply my hand pressure to that release and pull with my back and make it go off and be leaps and bounds more accurate. Now, predominantly, personally, I shoot a back tension release. The thumb button is something that I've been working with, but as far as accuracy levels and consistency, a thumb button is always going to be a lot more consistent for the average guy than an index finger release when shot properly.
Okay.
And the cool thing about these is the adjustability they have. Stan actually has multiple sizes. This is a small. It comes in medium, large, and extra large. So you're getting 4 different sizes. This one's a 4-finger, but just when you buy this release alone, you're not just getting this release. You're getting a 4-finger. You're also getting a 3-finger attachment as well. So this piece actually comes off and it actually moves as well. So you can change the angle so that it fits your hand perfectly.
Gotcha.
It comes with how many different posts? 5 different posts. So this little post right here that you can see going into the thumb barrel, it comes with 5 different lengths of that. So you can adjust, like for me, it would be way too far away. So I want a much longer thumb post so I don't have to reach into it.
Gotcha.
So you can change that length, you can change the angle, you can change how much movement there is on this before it goes off. I mean, releases like this are so customizable that when a lot of guys look at those release prices and they see $19 for a release, they go, "Oh, great! There's a $20 release. I'm going to grab that because I don't want to spend a bunch of money." And that's fine. The $20 releases are typically pretty good. They're consistent. They're easy to use. But are they going to give you the full performance that you need out of it? But when you look at like those $120, $150, $200 releases, if you ask your local outfitter or your local salesman why that release is $200 versus a $20 index finger release, they'll kind of geek out if they're anything like me. I like to geek out with my customers. As weird as that sounds. Unfortunately, when we had our grand opening, it had been a while since I had worked in kind of that kind of retail setting, and where I spend a majority of my time on a target line, we're constantly talking, going back and forth about different things that we're all doing and so on and so forth. So we all geek out constantly. So when a customer asks you a question and you immediately go back to the target line and you start geeking out with somebody and you get that deer in the headlights look, you're like, whoa, I got to rein this in a little bit. This is going to throw somebody off.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, but the customers enjoy it. So, I mean, and they know that they're leaving with good information. And we've had people buy products at our store and at some of the other stores with quality techs and quality outfitters that really love and shoot and use the products that they have. They're leaving with products that typically don't sell that well in your average big box or average setting. So we've been, just speaking for my store, for instance, we've got I mean, there's bow brands that sell really, really well. And for us, a lot of the archers in my department that shoot, a lot of us are PSE people. So keeping a PSE on the shelf is impossible. I mean, especially when you got people that are passionate about it. So
you had a gentleman ask that today too. Matter of fact, when I was there, do you sell PSE?
Yep, he asked.
Well, I know when Danny
we get a lot of requests for those.
When Danny and I are in the store, that's the thing. We can't keep them on the shelves because they're going out the door. Well, I tell you what, it's been some good information here, some great insight as far as bow tuning goes.
I think some great tips before the season. If you got some last minute things you need to do, take care of them before you get out in the field.
You got 2 weeks to get it done before you hit the woods.
Right, here in Michigan. I know in other states have already kicked off their seasons. They're in full bore hunting. But you know what? Like I plan on after the season, then I'll get back into some other stuff. But
right.
You gotta start shooting paper, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're headed that way. We've had a lot of long discussions about that. Yeah. So it's just a matter of time and getting everything set up and getting out there with you guys. So as long as you don't laugh at us, that's the thing.
Hey, just one more thing, real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as bow hunters, as far as bow hunting goes in general, keep the bow out of the case. That's the best advice I can give you is during the summer and during even the early winter month or later winter months, there's 3D shoots all over the state. If you're a Michigan guy, they're all over the place.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the second thing to actually hunting animals is actually hunting 3D targets. It's an absolute blast. So I would recommend checking those out. There's tons of great organizations to find in Michigan and all over.
That's one of the good thing about this state is there's a lot of underlying support for the outdoor industry and outdoor shooting sports in this state. So there's no excuse, like you said, for letting dust get on your bow, on your gun, anything like that. Get out and hit it hard.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, that's going to do it for this episode of the Up North Journal podcast. If we got any questions?
Any other questions?
Before we go?
Nope.
Nothing? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Chris, thank you for taking an hour out of your Sunday evening and sitting down with us and talking. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem. And I'll get with you and make an appointment, and you can tear my bow apart as well. We'll see what we can do. Good. All right. That'll do it for us this week, folks. As we always say, if you're on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Black Eagle Arrows,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Scent Vapor Hunting Scents,
Killer Food Plot Seeds, Attractants, and Supplements,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Antler Action,
Family Traditions Tree Stands,
and Badass Slingshots.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.